if you're watching this, then it means that it's gone up on Halloween, so if you're watching it on Halloween, happy Halloween first off. Secondly, this is a video of my top 10 horror films / franchises of all time, so this should be interesting. And just for the fact that I fear that I'll get to about number 3 and realise that I've added way too many to it, I'm going to go from 1 to 10 instead of 10 to 1. Now, I know that's odd, but that's the way I'm doing it so I don't end up putting too much on the list. So what is top? Now, this took a bit of deciding because there's 2 I was going to put as my top. So one's 1, one's 2 obviously, but they both involve chainsaws. Now, that means that number 1 is either the Evil Dead franchise or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or number 2 is the other one of them. So number 1 is Evil Dead franchise. Now I've chosen that one and I've chosen the whole franchise instead of just one of the films, because none of the films are the same, and I'm on about the original trilogy, not the remake here. Obviously you got Bruce Campbell as Ash. I won't go into detail too much because I've most likely reviewed all the films in this video at some time, and if I haven't I will get around to doing it sometime. But the reason why I've chosen the franchise as the top horror, franchise / film of all time, is because it's one of my favourites. You've got Bruce Campbell. The first one is half serious, but because of nowadays and the quality of it, it seems a bit jovial and a bit jokey. The second one's pure horror comedy. Now, I know that's going to annoy some people, but it is. And the third one's not just a horror comedy, but it's also a fantasy film because it's set far in the past. It's set somewhere completely different, and they still managed to make it work with Bruce Campbell's wit from start to finish. So that's why I've gone with that for the first. The second is obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I'm just going for the first one here, the original, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, so happy birthday Texas Chainsaw Massacre. One of the most absolutely brutal and scariest horror films ever made still. Now, I know that's going to cause some people say, what? Because it's not, compared to some of the films nowadays that are considered scary, it's not. But when you look back in the day, nothing had been done like this before. It was a man chasing people with a chainsaw that was wearing, and he was wearing, masks made of people's skin. Now tell me that's not terrifying, because this was based on a true story, consider that. That's one of the reasons why it was original, and for me it started off like most of the horror franchise. I dare to say you might not have had Ash's weapon as a chainsaw if it hadn't been for Leatherface, so it has to go there for obvious reasons. I also want to give a shout out to the remake and the prequel, because both are very good, and both are probably a lot better than the sequels for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 3 was a difficult choice. I came amongst 2 films for this, so I've gone for the only film that's ever properly scared me for this before, The Conjuring, and it's third for a reason. It scares people. It scared me. I mean, I've never ever been scared by a horror film before, but yet that somehow managed to do it, which impressed me at the same time. Obviously set in the 70s, I believe. It's about a family who moves house, ends up getting haunted by a ghost, blah blah blah. Some very intense scenes. I also believe it doesn't have any swearing in, and there's no proper violence. It's just for the scares that it is a 15. Number 4, I had to include this as 4. Now, I know that I'm biased towards it, and I know some people will look at me when I say this and think, what's that? American Mary. Directed by the Soska twins, it's about a medical student who ends up in a world of body modification, does it for his revenge. Very gory moments, very scary, well, not scary moments, intense moments, brilliantly written, brilliantly directed. If you're into body modification, stuff like that, like people having the tongue split in half, people having things put into their skin so it looks like they've got horns, I suggest you check it out because it's brilliant from start to finish and it's incredibly well directed, hence the reason why I've put it in as 4. Now, I debated what to do as 5 because there was 2 different things of 5, so I'm going to go for the remake of The Crazies right now. Now, I know you're probably looking at me and thinking, he's put a remake in, but the remake, for me, is better than the original. The remake has more the shock factor, the scare, well, not the scare factor, well, there are a couple of jump scares in it, but the intense factor as well, and the story. It's brilliant from start to finish, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out, because it is worth watching. Now, number 6, hence the reason why I was torn between it, because I went for number 6 because there's 3 films to it. It's the Dead trilogy, and I'm on about the original Dead trilogy. I am on about Night of the Living, Dawn, and Day of the Dead. Now, if you've not seen them, they're George A. Romero's original 3 zombie films that were from the 70s, 80s. If you've not seen them, they're classic. You can get, if you're going to get the original Night of the Living Dead, get the one in black and white. It's a lot better than the one in colour, and it gives you the feel of like when it first came out, which is a lot more terrifying than anything else at that time. Now, the reason why I've included these 3 films into the list, I know, is because they're revolutionary. They started off, I know that zombies probably might exist, but they might not have had such a good story. They started off the zombie genre. George A. Romero is known to a lot of people as the person who started the zombie genre, and that I'm one of those people, and I agree with them. He did do that. I mean, he revolutionised horror films with Dawn of the Dead. I mean, it's set in a shopping mall with loads and loads of zombies everywhere, and it's intense, it's terrifying, but at the same time, it's also got the comedic side to it, which a lot of films lack, because the zombies are slow and they're stupid. They walk and they fall over things, which is what it was at that time. I also want to give a mention to the remake of Dawn of the Dead by Zack Snyder, because that's very well made, and Land of the Dead, which was George A. Romero's zombie film from 2003 or 4. I don't really know what year that was from. So that was number 6. Surprisingly, I'm struggling what to think to put as number 7, because there's 2. Number 7, I'm going to have to go for, and I know this is going to make people's eyes roll, Freddy vs. Jason. Yeah, it's one of the few crossover horror films that we've had. It's not terrifying, but it's so bad it's brilliant. I mean, the script's awful, it's cheesy, but yet they make it work so brilliantly. I mean, Freddy vs. Jason, it just seems like it would be an all-out bloodbath, which it is, but at the same time, it can't be taken seriously because it's too stupid and too over the top, too slapstick. Now, people are going to be looking at me and thinking, what the hell is he on with? But watch it back. I mean, there was people who probably haven't watched it since it came out in 1999 or 2000. But it's revolutionary. It's horror comedy at its best, even though it's not meant to be horror comedy. Just watch it and see what I mean. So number 8. I was considering putting it higher, but the way that I'm putting the Devil's Corpse, the Reject Corpses, as number 8 for the fact that it's 2 of my favourite horror films, but it just suddenly ends. There's no lead up to the finale of it, which frustrates me because they could have easily done something else with it, but they never ever did. Also, the 2 different styles of the 2 films don't make them mash together as they should. They're brilliantly alone, don't get me wrong, and they're brilliantly together. But if it had been the same style throughout both the films, because the first one, it feels more like, I don't want to say an indie horror, but it feels more like it's trying to be happy and cheerful, but dark at the same time. Whereas the second one, it's just trying to be, it feels like a Hollywood film. So that's why that's there. Number 9 is Final Destination 1, 2, 3, and 5. Yes, I'm leaving out the infamous 4th one, also known as The Final Destination. Now, why have I left that out? Sorry, momentary distraction. I've excluded the infamous 4th one from it, just for the fact that it's completely shit, and the 3D in it doesn't work. hence the reason why I haven't included it. So, Final Destination series, it's all about people getting premonitions, saving people from death, blah blah blah. I'm sure you've heard the story of it now, Flight 180 and all that. I've included it as number 9 because while I love the series, I know that horror fans are split between it. Either they love it or they hate it. It's a good franchise, but just for the fact that it's not well loved is the reason why I haven't included it higher than number 9. Number 10 was a difficult one to choose because there are a lot of good horror films out there, and I think that I might go for something controversial here. My number 10 is The Human Centipede 1 and 2. Now, I know people are going to be looking at me disgusted right now. I've seen them both, and people complain about them. But yet, it's everything Tom Six said it was going to be. It was gory, it was horrible, it was disgusting. So why do people complain? That's what I like about it, because even, as they say, all publicity is good publicity. So that means bad publicity is... I mean, when it got banned by the BBFC back in 2011? Maybe? It must have been 11. It got a lot of publicity for the film. So it's not only one of the most controversial horror films, it's one of the most well-known horror films as well nowadays, which seems both sad and horrible, which is, in the end, what horror is all about. So I hope you enjoyed the list. If you didn't agree with it, comment in the comments. Tell me what you would have put in it. Tell me what I shouldn't have put in it. Go ahead and say whatever you like.